Hello, everyone. How are you? Hope you're having an incredible day, and may peace be upon you. Welcome to the show. It Takes Courage with me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. And today I have a special guest, a new friend from me, whom I've just met about a month ago, but has made a connection with me that I really appreciate. And we have today Kate, who is the financial planner as well as the managing partner at My Open Advisors to the show. And today we are going to be talking about, let me just grab the show title, Smart Money Habits for every family. So let's say hello to Kate on the show. Hi, Kate. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Good morning.
Thank you for being here today. And it's so great that, we met about a month ago and now we're kind of like forming and nurturing a relationship because that's what it's all about, right, Kate?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Okay, let's go straight in because we have a lot of families or even individuals who want to have a prosperous financial future as well as alignment with the current financial situation. So let me ask you the first question, Kate. Being, financial advisor for many years, what are the top 3 practical money habits every family or individual should adopt immediately?
Amazing. I love this question. And there are a lot of people that ask questions similar. What can we be doing so that we can feel like we have a better foundation when it comes to our family and our money? And the first thing is to have a plan. And I know that seems really simple, but do you have a plan for the family, for the money? The second habit is, how often do we revisit that plan? Are we going back annually? Are we going back a couple times a year? Because as we all know, life changes so fast. And then number 3, are we planning for the unknown? And that really can be the biggest opportunity for success for families, is if we have the habit of saying we're going to plan for all the things that we know, but we're also going to have a plan for all the things that we don't know. We're going to plan for flexibility and for change.
Okay, awesome. So have a plan for the unknown and also the known and the unknown. So can you give us like a quick description? What does this plan look like for those who are kind of new or getting a sense of things? For example, does the plan, one of it is having necessities. I've had some financial advisors or money gurus says that you need to have your necessities. You also need to put in some money for investment and saving. There's another pot for charity. There's another pot for, I don't want to call it emergency funds because of the vibration of it, maybe like a slush fund. So can you give us like a brief overview? What does the financial plan look like? That is something simple that a family can quickly adapt for it.
Absolutely. So just like you just alluded to, there are certain things that we know about what they're going to cost, right? Whether it's college, buying a car, buying a home. So those are sometimes the easiest ones because we're going to back into those numbers. How do we achieve those things? But then having a plan that says, hey, how much do we want to spend on lifestyle? I'm a big believer that money is like water. It's moving at all times and it's hard to capture. We're making it, we're spending it. It's always in motion. So my big focus is, if we have a plan, we're always focusing on how much money are we saving, where are we saving it, and why are we saving it? And if we can answer those three questions, then when we get paid, when we're building our wealth, we know that we're going to be putting money into these specific places for these specific purposes, and then that will determine how we invest it. So when we build a plan, we want to be answering those questions. And like you alluded to, a slush fund or emergency fund, how much do we have in there can depend really on the individual or the family. And then we say we're going to have a liquid portfolio. That the job of that emergency fund is just to be available at all times. And we're not going to worry about whether or not we have stocks or bonds for our emergency fund. The emergency fund goal is just to be liquid.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about stocks and funds, some of it just like whoosh, right? For some people, that is not the priority at the moment, and which is, important. Like, I love it when you touch base about the why. Like, why are we doing this? What is, and I love it when you said about the lifestyle, because certain financial advisors, planners, money guru, they're like, cut the lifestyle. No more latte, no more this, no more that. No, no more like buying ice cream, like none of those. Which is, I feel like, in some way it makes sense, but in some way it takes away your soul. So it doesn't like really, when your soul is not thriving, how can you live for the future or live in the present? And for those of you who are listening to us today, drop in the comment below or drop in the chat, because we're going to be able to see it, if you have a financial plan or not. Yes or no, just a simple yes or no. And if you don't have one, it's great. And if you have one, which is perfect as well, because then you can take what Kate teaches you today into application very, very quickly. So let's move on to the next part of our conversation. Okay, so money habits is you got to have a plan, and then you got to plan for the known, which is the easy part, the fixed expenses,
Yep.
and then the unexpected ones or the unknown. Kate, I feel the unknown is way more than the fixed one. It just flows, like keep on flowing out in that direction. Come back. So let's talk about how families can build a financial cushion without feeling overwhelmed or stressed out or feeling like they have to move to the jungle in a tiny home to take care of their expenses.
Yeah, yeah, I love that analogy. So and you're exactly right, money is always in motion, and that's one of the hardest things. People, we can't track it. So one of the most successful philosophies of my practice, and I think everyone should implement this, is don't worry where you spend it or how much you spend. Worry about how much you save. And in every situation, whether or not you're an 18-year-old going to college or you're a 50-year-old who's getting ready for retirement in the next decade, our goal is to always have money, similar to the slush or the emergency fund, where a certain percentage of all the money we make goes into an emergency fund until we reach a specific limit. Once we reach that, which is usually 6 to 12 months of our living expenses, everything included, then we go to the second one, which is we want to have a moderate bucket of money for the next 2 to 5 years. And as we fill that, if we've done our plan right, we know what that amount should be. Then we have our longest bucket, right? That's retirement. We might want to stop working one day. And then the rest of our savings goes in there. And as we back into what those numbers should be, as we make money, we fill those three buckets, and then we can spend the rest. So it doesn't matter if it's a latte or ice cream, we can spend it on whatever we need. I'm a big believer that we want to enjoy life to the fullest. The joke is that I'll tell you to go on the trip, do the experience, because, life is here for living. But we want to save first, and then we don't have to worry about necessarily how much we're spending because we've taken care of our priority, which is filling those buckets first.
Absolutely. Like one of my really good friends, Kate, her mom, her mom has worked her almost entire life, right? But when she hit closer to the retirement age, she had like an illness, an unfortunate illness. And then she was like, off work so hard all these years and I can't even enjoy my retirement. So that is like, because I hear a lot of people, right, I'm gonna travel to Bora Bora when I'm retired, kind of thing. So, and that could be 20 years, that could be 30 years, that could be 5 years, whatever that is. But having the awareness that you might not get those time,
Yeah.
or your health may not allow you, or something else that might happen that kind of like robs you. So speaking of that, what is your take? Because you're a big believer on having your lifestyle as well as making sure you're saving on those priorities, which is 6 to 12 months of living expenses covered. And then the second part of having a buffer for about 2 to 5 years, and then obviously your retirement. So what would you say in terms of still having that lifestyle or going on vacation or family trips, but making sure that thing is covered? Like it's not like not negotiable. Like your dream is non-negotiable, but also you don't want to be dig yourself in a hole.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I've discovered is that one of the biggest stresses for clients and for families is that when we're making money, whether you make $100,000 a year or $1 million a year, if we don't know what money we have set aside for future things, kind of the unknowns, it doesn't matter how much money we make, that stress is still there. So really what we're looking for is how do we reduce the stress so we can have more joy in the lifestyle piece, and it's something that you alluded to, do we travel now or do we travel later? And I like to look at every family and every person and say, what is our true priority? And many of us already know what that is, but we've been pre-programmed that we need a new car or we need to retire at a certain age. And if we peel back those bigger questions and say, what do you really want? A lot of times people will say, I actually love what I do. I love it. I don't actually really need to retire at a certain time, but I feel like I'm supposed to. Okay. Well, let's plan for retiring at some point, but let's do those small things along the way where we know that we might not be saving as much, but we also don't have any, intent of retiring early. Whereas I also have some clients that say, gosh, I really would love to retire early. I don't love what I do. So we can plan for both of those things by backing into how much are we saving. And then once we have alignment, that stress kind of walks away and you go, oh my gosh, as I'm making money, I know that the money going into this investment account or my child's 529 or this emergency fund, it is there for this purpose that aligns with me. And we have a lot of movement in the industry, especially the tech industry. And if we've set it up right, if a client gets a call with the 15-minute HR meeting that says, hey, we've reorged, right? Clients go, oh, it's no problem, right? I have 6 to 12 months emergency funds. That's in alignment. And we can align the risk of those buckets with, what the lifestyle is, what the profession is, so that that stress kind of walks away. So that when we're making those decisions of, do we want to go on the trip today or retire, we've calculated, what do we have set aside? What does that look like? What's the risk? And then we reduce the stress so that when we're on the plane to Hawaii, we're not like, oh shoot, am I not going to be able to retire? Can I order the Mai Tai? Absolutely, we can do both.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Virgin Mai Tai is one of my favorite drinks. That was the drink that I was introduced to, but obviously the virgin version because I don't drink alcohol. And I think after 2 years or 3 years, I think last month I had a date with my husband, and I was like, I ordered the Virgin Mai Tai, and hubby was like, "What is that?" Because I only drink it with my with my mastermind friend, like. Anyhow, I absolutely love it. And you touched something for those of you who are watching. We want you to drop in the chat box or in the comments, or even take a piece of paper and write down what is your purpose? What is the priority in your finances? What is the most important thing for you? And like Kate said, a lot of times you know what is important for you. It's just either you're kind of ignoring it or avoiding it or don't want to be present to it. What is the most important thing for you, and why? Why are you kind of like wanting to have this financial prosperity, as we want to call it? And you mentioned something about taking the small habits, right? Making sure all the small little things are taken care of. Now, Kate, not a lot of people have that extra money that they can put into. I remember when I was a student, I studied in England for my master's and PhD, and heard about this concept of putting your money and make it automatic. I didn't have a lot, so I'm like, okay, I can only do $5 total. So it's like $1 of like to my different pots, but I kind of set it up automatically so that I don't have to worry. And what's left over is for me to take care of my expenses. And I feel at that time, I feel like, oh my goodness, I feel such a loser, like only $1. But that 10-year habit has worked in my favor, in the sense that the habit helped me out to, it's not about the money that I kind of put in, it's the structure, it's the system, it's the trusting that after that $5 is deducted off, like I probably have like an allowance of $50. I don't remember, but after that $5 is deducted and I spend what's left, I still have enough. So I wanted to talk us through about building that small habits that people can do, one or two things, one or two small habits that people can do to kind of fill in their pots with their savings, their retirements.
Yeah. Um, no, I love what you said about, you do what you can, no matter how big or how small it is. And so the question is, how do we fill that pot, or is that right?
Yeah, the habits that we can create, the small habits that we can create now to fill in that small pot.
Yep, absolutely. Well, I think you nailed it on the head, which is basically, as we get paid regularly, whether doesn't matter the amount, by taking a small percentage and putting it into each bucket, it can have a powerful effect. And similar to any good habit, sometimes people, when we start talking about saving money, they're like, well, I don't want to have less. I'm afraid, what if I save money into this bucket and I run out of money? There's a lot of fear around that. But one of the things that I truly believe, after doing this for a while, is that if we set up those specific amounts for our emergency fund, our short-term investment account, and our long-term goals, that money is always available to us, right? Unless we've put it into a 401k and we're younger than 59 and a half. But there's a lot of investment vehicles out there besides 401ks. But we can always go back and say, oh gosh, I overspent this month, and kind of pull it back. But I'm a big believer that if we save first, as we watch those accounts grow, when we put our family's priorities first, all of a sudden, we might not get ice cream and a latte. We might just get ice cream. I'm a big ice cream fan too, Dr. Is. So I'm with you. But all of a sudden, you're like, you know what? It feels good to make those harder decisions where we might let something go, where we may not do both ice cream and latte. We just pick one. And then we go, oh my gosh, I'm saving for that trip. I'm saving for that bigger house. And what you said is perfect. You can start wherever you are, whatever the amount is, even if it's $1 or $5, but it's the point that we're taking what we have and we're aligning it with that purpose of, I want to be prepared for that unknown, right? I want to be prepared for that bigger thing. And I'm investing in myself and my future by taking these small habits and putting them into action.
Okay, awesome. Is taking the small habits and put it into action. And that part that we talked about, one thing I've learned, Kate, is that part needs to be separated from the other part. So it's not one
Yes.
the same part, because it gets really confusing. Even if you have Excel sheet tracking them, it's just going to go bonkers. So
Yeah.
that part is a different part. So for example, you have one separate account for the 6 to 12 months, and then another separate account for the 2 to 5 years, and obviously the retirement pot, depending on how you structure, whether it's Roth, IRA, 401k, or however you want to structure them. So I think that's a really valuable thing. Make sure they are separate parts, not everything in the same part divided by an Excel sheet. That doesn't work. It's just bonkers and messy. So I think that's
Well,
interesting.
and to build on that, huge believer in labeling, right? So that when you open up that bank statement, that bank account says emergency fund, right? That bank account says trip to Bali. That emergency fund says latte fund. You know, we don't need to get too specific, but whatever those big things are, having them labeled, because you're exactly right. One of the most common things that happen is people start saving into an emergency fund or short-term investment, and they say, Katherine, I've saved $100,000 or what, you know, whatever the amount is, right? Should I buy a rental house? Should I? And we start to go through all these scenarios. No, the goal is to have 6 to 12 months of whatever our emergency fund is. I'm not saying collecting dust, but high yield savings account or CD. And that's its job, right? Its job is to be there liquid. But a lot of times we can get really creative with our ideas about money. Well, what if I were to, nope, the job of that money is just to be available. And that happens so often. So, and a lot of families are similar in that way.
Absolutely. And I feel that I forgot the name of the book, but the essence of it is every money has a soul. So in the
Yeah.
sense that the intention of the money, the dollar goes here, the dollar goes for my retirement, the dollar goes for, and one of the things that our viewers here may want to set the intention is if you have a Roth IRA, is to kind of like max it out. Whatever you can max it out, like max it out. If you can, like at least set the intention. And it goes along the way, like every penny has a soul. And I believe, Kate, that you wanted to share like a couple of books that you feel
Yeah.
that the readers can, can take away, that learn something from it.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the books for kids is The Opposite of Spoiled by Ron Lieber. And it says raising kids when grounded, generous, and smart about money. But it has all of the same habits and philosophies that we've talked about today. So how do we create those good habits from a young age? And then another great book is Money Doesn't Grow on Trees. And so if you're curious about how to bring some of those habits and philosophies, you know, into your family, for your kids at any age, I highly recommend those two books.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Kate. And so let's touch base then about, because you mentioned the opposite of spoils, that is for kids to
Yeah.
teach them about, good money management habits, a great relationship with money. So let's touch base about a couple of ways that parents or future parents can teach their kids about money. And my son Abrar, he's 14, my eldest, so he's on that picture there. And he just had his first job, which he refereed an ice hockey game. He's an ice hockey player. And which is, to get that first job is hard, right? Because you're competing with other experienced referees. So I told him just set the intention, ask God to help you. And he got the job. And then I asked him how much, did he get? And he says he got X amount. And then yesterday we went to Sephora because I thought the Sephora sale was still on. So there I am wanting to get stuff from Sephora that is on sale. And then he picked up an item. It's a miniature of perfumes. And that was, I believe, around $100, let's say. But what he's getting is less than that. So I'm like, how are you going to pay for it? And I literally had to stop myself from like, let me pay it for you. Because I literally had to stop myself from, you're earning your income now, and it's going to get more and more consistent after this. So let's talk about how parents like me, whose kid has a little bit of income, or at least from their young, can teach them about money. Because some parents give their kids allowances as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, and everything I'm about to share are just some best practices for some families. I'm a big believer that every family has to figure out what is the exact right combination for them. But in The Opposite of Spoiled, it talks about how when we receive money, whether it's allowance or from a job, we always set aside how much we're going to spend for ourselves, save, and then give. And
Mhm.
it sets up those habits of we're teaching kids how do we kind of prepare ourselves that we're not going to just spend all of it. And like we talked about for adults, for everybody, having different accounts. And there's a couple of different ways. There's a good old fashioned piggy bank. As kids get older, you can have minor accounts and different things. But one of the biggest things we can do is go over how to read a bank statement with the child. Now, of course, that's age appropriate, but to go over a bank statement, because even in checking account, savings account, you're usually going to get a little bit of interest. And so if we talk about, hey, we earned $100, we're going to save 20%. So we're going to put 20% in our savings. We're going to give away $5. So we're going to find where are we going to give our $5 to? And then we're going to spend the rest. So we get that joy of saying, hey, we're going to really kind of take ownership, take joy of that spending. We're going to, whatever that may look like for them. But then we're always saving a specific amount and then talking about why we're saving it, where we're putting it. And then eventually, when it makes its way into a bank account, being like, holy smokes, we made $3 in interest this month, right? And then we can show how when we save, that money can make money for us when we put it in different places, different accounts.
Yeah, that is great. Again, it's kind of like a simplified version of the adult version of,
Yeah,
having this kind of a different parts for it. And it's just simplifying, okay, save and invest. And then as well, save and invest as well as charity or teething. And
yeah,
it's so important to kind of like give back no matter what we have. And it just purifies what you have because you're using your money what you get to help other people. So that's a fantastic thing. So the opposite of spoils, that is for the book for the kids, and the other one is money doesn't grow on trees, which is like a very 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 common saying that we hear all the time. But what if money does grow on tree? How can we create money that grows on tree would be my question. So, okay, let's wrap up with this. For those of you, as we're ending 2025, oh my goodness, I cannot believe we're going to 2026. But as we're ending 2025, 2026, a lot of families, individuals are planning for the next step, their 2026 budget and everything else. What would you say is, if they choose to work with a financial advisor, what would you say are some of the characteristics or what would you say some of the characteristics that they need to look for a financial advisor that is going to be of service to them?
absolutely. I love this question because I get questions all the time. Have you heard of a Roth conversion? Have you heard of, all of these really specific investment strategies? Investments are like cars. There's a lot of great cars. They're all great for different reasons. But when picking a financial advisor or financial planner, I personally think having a CFP is amazing because we have a planning standard. But the financial plan is the roadmap that is specific for your family, for you. And then we can decide which strategies, which car do we want to use for that roadmap, right? And that roadmap may change. So we want to have someone who says, hey, as a fiduciary, as a planner, we're going to put you on the right path forward. And then all of those incredible strategies that we hear about all the time, we may use some of them, we may use all of them, but the most important thing is, are they relevant for you with where you want to go? Do you want to work until you're 65 or you want to retire at 50? What does that look like? And then we match up those strategies for you, for the family. So I would say having a true financial plan is something that a lot of people miss. They're more worried about sometimes the asset allocation or the investments. We've got plenty of those, but we need to make sure that the plan is specific for the individual or for the family.
Brilliant. So basically, when you want to choose a financial advisor, ask them if they customize plans for your family's purposes and goals and dreams. I think that's one of the key things, whether they are going to be of service to you or they're going to be of service to their, bank account kind of
Yeah.
thing. That is like a difference there because each family is unique. They have unique situation, unique background, unique income generation thing. So thank you so much, Kate, for being our guest today and for sharing your tips on how we can create financial prosperity and create alignment with our wealth. And even though our money is in motion, it comes and it goes, it comes and it goes. Sometimes it goes out more than it comes in. But when it comes in, sometimes it comes in with a wave. So you gotta like be prepared in all those times. At least, the very least, create like a pot and your three different pots. Your what you call it, the 6 to 12 months, short term, and then there's a long term, and then there's a retirement. And then whatever that is left, that is for you to spend. And remember as well to give some to charity as well. So let's finish with this. Fill in the blanks. Financial prosperity happens when? Financial prosperity happens when?
I would say financial prosperity happens when we have confidence and we have joy with when we get to spend. I mean, I know that might sound silly, but a lot of us, if we're not getting enjoyment from spending because we're worried that we're not saving the right amount or it's not in the right bucket, we're not getting the enjoyment. And that's why we work so hard. We work hard so we can have that confidence and that freedom that comes. So I think that that's what the financial prosperity means.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Kate, for being on the show. It Takes Courage with me, your host, Dr. Izdihar Jamil. And if you want to catch up with Kate, that is go ahead and scan the QR code or go to myfinancialadvisors.com and then get in touch with Kate. Her details are there on how you can connect with either her or any of the partners at my open advisors. So thank you so much for being on the show, Kate. And for those of you who are tuning in, thank you for tuning in. It takes courage when you are brave and bold in your decisions and also make smart money decisions with your finances. All right, take care, everybody. May peace be upon you. Let's say bye to everybody, Kate.